If you are new to Formula 1 or you want to start watching it this season, then this is the video for you. I just want to make it clear that most of the background footage will actually be from the Formula 1 game, but it is still a video for new F1 viewers and it has nothing to do with the game. But let's get right into it. Formula 1 is the highest level of motorsport and also one of the most watched sports, where 10 teams and 20 drivers compete to win the Drivers and Constructors Championship. The Drivers Championship is won by the driver with the most points in a season, and the Constructors Championship is won by the team with the most points in a season. The team's points is the combined points scored by the team's drivers. This is normally 2 drivers, but teams can decide to change drivers during the season or use a reserve driver if something happened to one of the main drivers. And even if a driver leaves the team won't lose the points the driver got them. So how do you score points? In every race, points is given based on the finishing order, from 25 points to the race winner to a single point for number 10. The driver that set the fastest lap in a race also gets a bonus point if he finishes in the top 10. Is Formula 1 and Formula 2 the same? Well, no, but they are connected. Drivers start with karting as young as 4 years old and then make their way through different series where they will encounter some of the other Formula leagues. Formula 1 is the highest level of the Formula series, then we have Formula 2, Formula 3 and Formula 4. This is where drivers get a chance to show they should be racing alongside the other 19 best drivers in the world. How does a Formula 1 weekend work? I will not be going over the press conference or the media aspect of F1, just the racing side. So a race weekend starts on a Friday, where teams will have 2 practice sessions for the drivers to get used to the track and the teams to test out parts and get data for strategies for qualifying and the race. On Saturday we have another free practice session. This is also the last session where teams can test their setups, and it's very important because as soon as qualifying starts on Saturday afternoon, the cars go into park firmly. This means the teams will not be allowed to make any changes to the car setup, with exceptions to the front wing that can be adjusted and tire pressure. There is a few other things teams can do, but mostly just for reliability. But let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. So how does qualifying work? Qualifying is on the Saturday afternoon or evening, and all 20 cars enter it. The drivers then have 18 minutes to complete the fastest possible lap, and the 5 slowest drivers for that session will be eliminated, and that will also be the starting order for P16 to P20. After that we move on to Q2. It will be similar, but this time the drivers only get 15 minutes, and again the 5 slowest drivers will be eliminated, and that will also be their starting order. And the last qualifying session is qualifying 3, where the top 10 drivers will set the fastest possible lap in 12 minutes to determine the starting grid. The fastest driver will start from pole position. Moving on to Sunday, we have race day, where the drivers will start in qualifying order and complete the race. Each driver will have to do at least 1 pit stop if it's not raining, and the race is normally just under 2 hours. Now you understand the normal F1 weekend, but sprint weekends work a bit different, with only 1 practice session on the Friday followed by a normal qualifying session. Then on Saturday morning there is another practice session followed by the sprint race on the Saturday afternoon. This race will start in qualifying order, and the results for this race will be the starting grid for the main race on Sunday. Sprint races award 8 points to the winner, and every driver until P8 gets a point less, so P8 gets a single point. So now you know everything about the race weekend, but what about the teams? Like I already mentioned, there is 10 teams, and all of the 10 teams use 1 or 4 engine suppliers. The 4 engine suppliers are Ferrari, Mercedes, Red Bull and Renault. All of these engines are the 1.6 litre V6 turbo hybrid engines that produce up to 1000 horsepower, and the cars can go as fast as 350 km per hour. Ferrari engines are used by Ferrari, Alfa Romeo and Haas. Mercedes engines is used by Mercedes, Aston Martin, McLaren and Williams. The Red Bull engine is used by Red Bull and Alfa Tauri, and the last engine supplier is Renault, and their engines is used by Alpine. So like I mentioned, the 20 F1 drivers is 20 of the best drivers in the world. So who are they and what teams are they racing for? So starting with Red Bull, they dominated F1 from 2010 to 2013, but they had a couple of hard years where they were still fighting for some wins but never the Constructors Championship. But then in 2021 they had some crazy improvements and they were challenging Mercedes for the Constructors Championship. In 2022 they finally won the Constructors Championship again after a dominating season. Their drivers is Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez. Max Verstappen is a Dutch driver, he's a 2-time world champion and dominated the 2022 season. His teammate Sergio Perez, the most successful Mexican Formula 1 driver of all time. A great teammate for Max Verstappen. Next we have Ferrari. They are the most successful Formula 1 team in F1 and have been racing in F1 from the first ever season back in 1950. Their drivers is Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz. Charles Leclerc got the longest contract from Ferrari in the team's history, showing us they think he has some great potential, and he looked like the driver to beat in the beginning of the 2022 season. And his teammate Carlos Sainz Jr., son of Carlos Sainz Sr., a 2-time World Rally champion and a 3-time Dakar winner. His son has also shown some great talent and got his first F1 victory in 2022. Next we have Mercedes. Even if you haven't watched F1 from from 2014 to 2020, you would have heard of the Mercedes dominance. With the 2022 season, the first season that Mercedes didn't win the Constructors' Championship in the turbo hybrid era. The drivers are Lewis Hamilton and George Russell. Starting with Lewis Hamilton, one of the two drivers that won 7 Drivers' Championships in Formula 1, with the only other driver to have done that, Michael Schumacher. His son Mick Schumacher is currently the reserve driver for Mercedes. But going back to Lewis Hamilton, he has shown some incredible talent from his first F1 race and he hasn't stopped since. Like Mercedes, he dominated the turbo hybrid era. His teammate George Russell, another British driver, is the future of Mercedes, beating his 7-time world champion teammate the first season the two of them had the same car. Next we have Alpine. They are Formula 1's newest team. They replaced Renault, but like I mentioned, they are still using the Renault engine. It is a French team with an all-French driver lineup. They have Esteban Ocon and Pierre Gasly. Esteban Ocon won a race in 2021 in a car that didn't have the same pace as the front runners, but he managed to win the race and is also the more experienced driver at Alpine. And his teammate Pierre Gasly, he is part of the Red Bull Junior program and even did the first half of 2019 in the Red, but he left the program to join Alpine for the 2023 season. He also got his first win in 2021. The next team is McLaren. They are also a very successful Formula 1 team and is also the second oldest F1 team on the grid. Their drivers is Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri. Lando Norris have shown some incredible racing the last few years and is also the only driver in the midfield that got a podium in 2022. A midfield driver is someone from a midfield team. That means they didn't race alongside the top teams. Going to Oscar Piastri. Well, you might have heard about him after Alpine announced he will be racing for them, and he responded that it wasn't true, and a few weeks later he announced that he will be racing for McLaren. The next team is Alfa Romeo, Ferrari's sister team. The two drivers are Valtteri Bottas and Guan Yu Zhou. Bottas joined Alfa Romeo in 2022 after a 5-year stint at Mercedes. Bottas is an experienced driver with 10 race wins, and his teammate Guan Yu Zhou is the first Chinese driver in Formula 1. The next team is Aston Martin, owned by Lawrence Stroll, father of the driver Lance Stroll. His teammate is Fernando Alonso. Fernando Alonso is a 2-time Formula 1 world champion and also the race winner of the Le Mans 24 Hours. He's the oldest driver on the grid, but he's incredibly fast. Lance Stroll, like I mentioned, is the owner's son and is a paid driver, and he got a lot of hate for it, but I think we can all agree he has improved a lot and can even get a spot on the F1 grid without the money. If you don't know what a paid driver is, it is a driver that's on the grid because he is paying for a seat in F1, sometimes up to $20 million a season. But moving on to Haas, they joined F1 in 2016 and had a great 2018 season, finishing in P5, but that was the last of the Haas success. The drivers Kevin Magnussen and Nico Hülkenberg. Kevin Magnussen has been racing for Haas from 2017 but got dropped by the team in 2020 but made a return in 2022, and his teammate, the super sub, Nico Hülkenberg. He lost his seat in 2019 but raced for Racing Point as a reserve driver when one of the drivers couldn't race. Probably wondering who Racing Point is. Racing Point changed to Aston Martin in 2021. Going to AlphaTauri. AlphaTauri is Red Bull's sister team and used to be called Toro Rosso, that is Italian for Red Bull. Their drivers is Nick de Vries and Yuki Tsunoda. Starting with Nick de Vries, he's a Formula E world champion and used to be the Mercedes reserve driver, but he got an offer from Red Bull to race at AlphaTauri in the 2023 season, and the 2023 season will be his first ever season in F1. Yuki Tsunoda joined AlphaTauri while Honda was still making the Red Bull engines. And the last team on this list is Williams. Williams have a strong history in F1 but have been struggling the last few years. The drivers is Alex Albon and Logan Sargeant. Alex Albon raced for Red Bull for a season and a half, but he was demoted to reserve driver, but they got him a seat at Williams in 2022 when he raced for Williams with the Red Bull logo on his helmet, and his teammate Logan Sargeant is an American driver who will be racing in F1 for the first time in 2023, but they've done a lot of practice sessions in the Williams to get enough super license points to race in F1. So what's a super license? It's something the FIA use to ensure their drivers is ready for Formula 1 once they get there. I hope you enjoyed this video and be sure to share it with someone that wants to start watching F1.